And we're very pleased to be joined today by Makan Delrahim, who was confirmed in September of 2017, as the Assistant Attorney General for the Antitrust Division, and as part of the Orrin G. Hatch Foundation, a symposium on music licensing. And thanks for joining us on Inside Sources today.
Well, thank you so much for having me, boys. I'm honored to be on your program.
Oh, wonderful! And my apologies on the scheduling snafu. That was me. So we appreciate you being flexible with us today. And I wanted to get into the forum itself. Obviously, Senator Hatch has a long history of involvement in the music and recording industry, the licensing industry. But from your unique perch as Assistant Attorney General for the Antitrust Division at the U.S. Department of Justice, tell us what you're seeing. What are some of the big concerns? What are some of the trends you're seeing right now?
Well, we are, as you may know, we have been quite active in the area of the high technology. We have, it's been reported, we have launched an investigation into some of the large platforms recently. So we've been quite active. We've been active in the field of media and broadcasting recently with some of the merger activity. And most relevant and germane to the symposium tomorrow, we have launched a review of the Justice Department's, there are many legacy consent decrees, and these are about 1,300 consent decrees that go back to 1890, believe it or not.
Wow.
And we are reviewing some of them to see if they're relevant. And two of the consent decrees happen to govern the music business and the music industry. And Senator Hatch has been quite active with respect to recording artists and public performance rights. And these two consent decrees govern basically how music, the public performance of music, is conducted in this country since, literally for the last 79 years. And we are taking a close look, and we're reviewing to see if those need to be modified, terminated, sunsetted, or just left alone. And so that's something we are quite active in.
I think that's so fascinating. It's been 79 years. There's been a few changes, I think, in the industry over that period, and but it is an interesting thing, I think, for our listeners to think through. That a lot of times, especially when it comes to things like broadcast rights or licensing rights or copyrights and so on. Most of us don't think about those things a lot, and yet to some people, it's and not just the famous singer-songwriters, but to a lot of those who are maybe a little lower on that totem pole, who really depend on it for their livelihood, and this impacts them as well.
Absolutely. Some of the greatest musicians and artists in the country, write some of these songs, and they need to make their livelihood based on these types of royalties that they get. And we're not talking about some of the most the most famous and well-to-do, but I'd say 95% of the artists are folks who might be living paycheck to paycheck. They don't have the recording deals, and so these are the composers, these are the authors, and they're members of two rights societies, ASCAP and BMI, that have been subject to this, and the rates that they get is not necessarily negotiated by the free market. Mm-hmm. It's set by judges in New York, and we're taking a look to see if, is it an appropriate role for the Antitrust Division of the Justice Department to continue to be involved in this, or is it something where other parts of the government should get involved to set policy?
Fantastic. If you're just joining us, we're very pleased to have with us on Inside Sources today Makan Delrahim, Assistant Attorney General for the Antitrust Division at the U.S. Department of Justice. He is here for a symposium at the Hatch Center, Music and Licensing. He'll be joined by former Senator Gordon H. Smith, will actually join us on the program tomorrow, as well as Senator Hatch and others in this discussion. And I wanted to ask you, as we get towards the close here, there's also an international component to this. We often hear of the copyright challenges for especially people in the music industry as it relates to China and other areas around the world. How does your department interact from the global perspective?
That's a good question. It is one where we're quite active. We have, there's about 138 antitrust agencies around the world. We work closely with the U.S. Trade Representative's Office, as well as the State Department, Department of Commerce, in interacting with foreign governments. And it's one of the major issues right now between the U.S. and China that President Trump has been trying to address is, how those foreign countries treat U.S. intellectual property. Do they just pirate it? Do they provide adequate and effective remedies? And Senator Hatch, when he was in the Senate, in addition to his domestic input, he was actually one of the authors that created the ambassador for intellectual property negotiations at the Trade Reps Office, and was quite active both in the Senate Judiciary Committee as well as the Senate Finance Committee, where international trade goes through that committee. So he was active, and I'm proud to have been quite active at the Antitrust Division, making sure that intellectual property is treated the way that the creators and innovators are supposed to be treated, getting the fair compensation they deserve for their creations rather than piracy.
It's a fascinating topic, and it'll be a great symposium tomorrow. Again, the Orrin G. Hatch Foundation, the Hatch Center Symposium on Music and Licensing in the 21st Century, and Makan Delrahim, Assistant Attorney General for the Antitrust Division. Thanks so much for joining us today on Inside Sources. Really appreciate your insight and your time.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and I'm honored to be part of the symposium tomorrow and part of the great work that the Hatch Center has been doing in the intersection of public policy and civil discourse.
Thank you so much.